Now, mind you, I didn't hear about Emilia Perez until I was watching the Hollywood Reporters Roundtable that had Zoe Saldana, the star of Anora, Angelina Jolie, I believe, and a couple other people. I hadn't heard of the movie at all. And as I'm scrolling on Blue Sky, I saw that this movie, Emilia Perez, had like 13 Oscar nominations. So I go to look it up and I see that it's on Netflix, and I said, oh, really? Bet I'm watching it tonight. I had no idea at all what it was about. I think I did know it was a musical ahead of time, and I was like, okay. But as it started to play, it was like, when you think of musicals, like, it was like darker, brooding. I feel like the music in it came naturally. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna break out into song now. It was like with dialogue, and it was kind of like talk singing, and I was like, wow, this is great. And then we get to the scene where Rita meets up with Manitas, aka Emilia, and they're talking about, what Manitas wants to do. And he does this like rap, creepy, like duh, duh, duh. Yes, I want to go and do, and I get the surgery, and then I do this, and I did it, and like the way his face looked, and like I just thought it was so brooding and dark. Like that scene actually kind of scared me, the way he was talking. Like he looked like he was about to, like, it looked like a split tongue was gonna come out of his mouth, and he was gonna bite her and put venom in her. Like that moment, I was like, oh my god, this movie is fucking fantastic. When I tell you, this movie had my phone down, did not Google anything, didn't learn. I was just like, eyes glued to the screen. Now, imagine my shock after the movie is over and I go online and I see that people hate this movie. That they think it's absolutely terrible, that it's actually super problematic. The LGBTQ community hates it. I mean, a lot of people at large hate it. I just feel like such an existential crisis is not the word, but I just feel so like, what? There were parts of the movie that I watched and definitely thought, this is kind of offensive. How are they getting away with this? A third through the movie, I was immediately thinking, oh, I wonder what the trans community thinks about this movie. Most notably, the scene where Rita has to go and travel abroad to find a place for Manitas to get his surgery to transition. They go to Thailand. They're singing the song in the plastic surgeon's office. Even the surgeon's like, oh, what kind of surgery do you want? Male to female, female to male. Oh, penis to vagina. It was like, that whole scene was just weird. But then that part definitely had me like, okay. Also, it really did not make sense to me that she ended up going to Israel and getting an Israeli doctor. That was so random. From a lay person's knowledge, that's not a place that people go for those surgeries. It would have made more sense if he went to Thailand. Like that whole thing with that doctor, and then he came to Mexico, and then he went back, and then he just was like, seemed like he didn't even believe that transgenderness or whatever. Why is this included here? And I thought also the song was terrible. That song, that whole interaction was terrible. That being said, also I was very surprised people hated the little boy's song when Emilia decided that she wanted to link back up with her family, and she's, playing with her sons, and she's tucking her son in at night, and the son is singing the song that you smell like my papa, you remind me of my papa, and he was doing the talk singing thing. Oh, I feel so bad saying this, but I liked it. I thought the song was good. The way the music is, it feels natural. I do feel like the one thing I'm gonna stand on is that the music overall was good. No offense. I feel like everybody has been Lin-Manuel Miranda to death. That you guys think that Lin-Manuel Miranda is the only person who knows how to make a musical, the only person who knows to make music for a movie. But, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like the movie doesn't have its problems, right? I definitely made sure that I watched a lot of analysis afterward. I totally get what people are saying, especially trans people. While I like the movie, I'm not saying that certain things that it did was okay, which it definitely wasn't. Like I said, specifically the plastic surgery scene, it was very cringy. I know that a lot of people talked about how that when Manitas was a man, he was bad, but then when he transitioned, then all of a sudden he's good. So it like perpetuates this idea of like man bad, woman good. The idea that once a trans person transitions, it's like their whole entire life and past is just erased. Even bad things they do in the past is just erased. And they just kind of have like this like halo effect afterward, which I thought were all really good points that people made. I thought the movie was really interesting. I was really engaging. The story had twists and turns that I did not expect. I feel like they definitely dropped the ball with the ending, and I don't know if maybe the writer-director just came to a point where he didn't know what else to do with the story. He was just like, all right, whatever, we'll throw them in the car and die. Like, once the car crashed, I honestly thought, I was like, oh, you know, maybe the trunk flew open and Emilia flew out and was able to survive. And then Emilia wanted to get the mom out of the picture, it seems. And so Emilia was able to have her sons back. So I do feel like the ending was just kind of like a throwaway, like it was not memorable. And I don't think that it did the movie justice when it took us on this long ride. I also want to say that I thought the cinematography was great. I thought the lighting was great. I thought the acting was great. I'm not the biggest fan of Zoe. I'm not going to lie. I'm not the biggest fan. What is it about her? It's something like... Maybe it's because it's the same thing. You see the same thing. I hated her eyebrows in this movie. I hated her makeup in this movie, or lack of makeup. The actress who played Emilia, her acting was great, phenomenal. I don't really understand why she is the lead actress, like for the Oscars, why she's the lead actress and not the supporting actress. I don't want anyone competing with Demi Moore for Best Actress for The Substance. But to me, it would seem like Rita, like Zoe Saldana, is the lead in this movie and not the supporting. And I feel like the story of Emilia Perez is through the lens of Rita, because the story started with her before Manitas, and then it ended after Emilia dies, and it's still on Rita. So Carla Sofia Gascon, who played Manitas and Emilia, first of all, the makeup was fucking amazing. Okay, makeup was amazing. Honestly, when I think about like the whole, you know, problematic issues, I think one of the reasons is that it's disappointing is because when I watched the movie, like I honestly wasn't thinking about all those extra things, like the politics behind it. I was just so enthralled in the story. I feel like the core of the story itself is actually very, very interesting. When watching the movie, I feel like I just automatically assumed that the filmmakers were working in good faith, that they did their research, that they had maybe some queer consultants to help them with the script and the story. Honestly, the part of it taking place in Mexico, totally... I wasn't even paying attention. It could have been in Colombia, honestly. I was not paying attention to that, which is probably an issue. But I just assumed that they would have done their due diligence, which is like clearly not. Let's check out this article that kind of breaks down all of the problems in this movie. Straight up like that. Emilia Perez is not a good movie. It won 4 Golden Globes and dominated Oscar nominations. It's offensive on multiple levels. Damn. I'm gonna watch it again because maybe the bar is in hell for movies for me. You know what it is? It's just the story. Just the story had me really intrigued. I forgot to talk about Selena Gomez's acting in this movie. Like, her acting was fine, but she could have not been in there. I will say though, there was a moment when she decided that she was gonna go back to her old side piece, and she said something like, "When I think about you, my coochie wants to cry," or something like that. I don't know why I related to that line in that movie. Lord, this is not professional. Jacques Audiard's Emilia Perez is the most fascinating movie I've watched in the last year in entirely negative ways. Its 132 minutes unfold like a glittering and garish tour de force of disaster, a relentless procession of terrible ideas, terribly executed. Gosh! It's also the precise sort of preening cinematic onanism that Hollywood types like to think of as visionary, which is the reason the film's Golden Globes triumph was just followed by a leading 13 Oscar nominations from Academy voters. Emilia Perez is a musical set in present-day Mexico that tells the story of its titular character, who begins the movie as Manitas del Monte, a murderous and terrifying drug kingpin who has recently consolidated power by annihilating competitors and buying off politicians. Despite these professional triumphs, Manitas harbors a secret desire to, in the character's words, be a woman, roping the movie's other main protagonist, attorney Rita Mora Castro, into a plan to help her undergo a litany of gender-affirming surgeries, and I use litany here in its this person is using too many big words, man. Ecumenical. I'm getting mad because they're using words I don't know. In one scene, no, because I don't like when shit you just be saying shit just to say shit. Like, just say the shit, okay? Like, don't be trying to sound smart. In one scene, the medical names of all the various procedures are chant sung. Yeah, that scene was crazy. That scene was actually freaking crazy. Okay, I'm starting to have second thoughts now. You know what just came into my head? Zoe Saldana has made some questionable choices for certain films. The fact that she's in this, I should have definitely, withheld judgment before I liked it. I should have been like, is this really a good movie? Is this really a good movie? We can never forget that Nina Simone shit, okay? We can never forget that shit, all right? So a comment said, it's unbelievable. How is this song nominated? It's literally like a 7-year-old improvising words and randomly singing whatever. I guess native English speakers think it's like a Hamilton in Spanish. I think that's exactly what I thought. Like, it sounds good to me. Like, and I'm someone who's learning Spanish, but I don't understand everything, especially in talking and movies and stuff. It's hard for me to like follow along. But it sounds good to me. Like, even this song to me sounds good. But people are saying it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand how these people made the movie and they didn't they didn't use Spanish language bilingual people to properly transcribe. They didn't use Spanish language composers or something. Like, I'm thinking everything is copacetic. I'm thinking everything is taken care of. I'm thinking that they consulted the right people and did all the right things, watching the movie in good faith. And now I'm like pissed off because it's like, now you're making me feel stupid for liking this fucking movie. I've been seeing people say that when Zoe speaks Spanish, it doesn't sound right, or like it doesn't sound like she's a fluent Spanish speaker, which I don't understand because I'm pretty sure Spanish was her first language. But this kind of goes back to her choices. Like, if you don't speak Spanish fluently, natively, why did you take this role? You should not be in this movie. It doesn't make sense. Like, and people are saying that their accents, they don't sound Mexican. The actress Carla is from Spain. And then they also saying that Selena Gomez doesn't speak Spanish either. She lost it as a child. So like, what was up with that? Someone said, this is what I imagine musicals sound like to people who hate musicals. This feels like a SNL sketch. I can't believe this was taken seriously and won awards. The actor playing the doctor deserves an Oscar just for being able to not laugh when he has to sing the line from P to V. I knew that this scene was crazy when I saw it. I didn't have to be told. Like, this was just like nonsense. I really thought your boy had consulted, and I was just like, all right, I guess if they think it's okay, then it's all right, While also faking Manita's death and arranging for the narco trafficker's wife and children to be relocated to Switzerland. All of this somehow happens within the movie's first 40 minutes. The remainder of the film deals with Emilia's attempted reunion with her children, who after 4 years in Switzerland are somehow persuaded to move back in with Emilia in Mexico under the ruse that she is the deceased father's distant cousin, as well as her road to personal redemption as she falls in love and founds a nonprofit dedicated to finding the remains of Mexicans who are murdered and disappeared by drug cartels, becoming a national hero in the process. If this all sounds both ludicrous and potentially wildly offensive, you are onto something. Mexican viewers have excoriated the film's sensationalist and deeply retrograde depiction of their country as a violence-ridden failed state, as well as Audiard's seeming disinterest in anything resembling cultural authenticity. None of the film stars were born in Mexico, and almost none of the movie was shot in Mexico. After making several trips there to scout locations, Audiard ultimately chose to shoot most of the film on sound stages in Paris. The director has cited the challenges of shooting musical numbers on location as the main reason for this choice, but one also wonders if the Mexico he encountered on his scouting trips didn't conform to the Mexico of his imagination. Meanwhile, LGBTQ plus voices have criticized the film's ham-handed depiction of gender transition, with GLAAD decrying the film as a profoundly retrograde portrayal of a trans woman. Were Emilia Perez simply an abomination of content, that would be one thing. But what truly elevates the film to its rarefied plane of cinematic nonsense is that it's also an abomination of form. The film's hyperactive pursuit of gee whiz blurb, you've never seen anything like it, has led many to describe the film as genre defying or some equivalent term. But this isn't really true. Emilia Perez is a musical through and through, and not even a particularly innovative or original one. It has big dance numbers, it has characters bursting into song to convey their emotional truths, it has melodrama and flashy camera work, and it has an ending that I won't spoil, although honestly, if you made it this far and are still planning on watching this film, I should probably quit my job. The ending was trash. The ending was not good. He got to the end of the page and he was like, and then they got in a car accident and died. The end. Like, literally, that was it. Because the movie didn't even continue on after that. It just showed like a funeral procession of them singing a song that it's like, didn't seem relevant at all. Yeah, and didn't do the story justice. Even the notion that it ostensibly edgy subject matter subverts its genre is silly. Musicals have been being made about serious contemporary issues for nearly as long as modern Broadway has existed. I have always said I like darker tone movies, so if anybody else has musicals that have a dark tone and dark subject matter that you would like to recommend, I will gladly watch it. I know I've seen Sweeney Todd before, obviously. The Wiz is not a dark movie, but it does have like more creepier elements than I would say The Wizard of Oz did. Yeah, if anyone has any musicals to recommend that have a similar feeling, I'd love to hear it. The film has no unifying musical aesthetic to speak of. Nearly every song feels like a phoned-in mashup of cliches pilfered from the most banal corners of pop, rock, and hip-hop. Indeed, the film's songs and score, composed by French songwriters Camille and Clément Ducol, seemed almost studiously ignorant of Mexico's own illustrious musical traditions. The result is a mess without a memorable melody to speak of, let alone an even halfway decent original song. I would say the Little Boy song I thought was the best, and also Manita's original little rap song. I don't know. I like the music, but to hear that it's literally nonsense is just like, and they're saying that it didn't have any theme to it. I don't know if that's a problem. Maybe if you're a musical head, there were a couple bad songs, like the Plastic Surgery song, the Doctor in Israel song was terrible. I'm questioning everything right now. I'm like, what was up with me that night? I know that I haven't seen a good movie in a long time, but I'm just like, yeah, the bar must be in hell, because so like last night I was trying to watch Dune 2. That movie was just like putting me to sleep. Like, how do people like that series? It's so boring. Like, even Zendaya could not keep me interested in that movie. Oh my god. I'm trying to get through the Oscar noms before the event, but I don't know if I'm gonna get through all of them, especially after this. First of all, Emilia Perez is what it is, and it's like all this stuff. Then Dune 2 is just like so fucking boring. I mean, I already watched The Substance. I'm going to try and get through them, but you see my life as a filmmaker? It's like just torture, and rejection and stupidity and mess. Again and again and again. The first big song and dance number comes less than 5 minutes into the film, in which Rita leads a mass chorus of impoverished and brutalized Mexicans through and around Mexico City, belting out lines about the country's misery while people around her are literally stabbing each other to death in the street. Was I just not paying attention? I don't even remember that. The bar is in hell. The bar is in hell. What exactly is Emilia Perez trying to say? The most generous interpretation would be that it's a statement about the importance of self-acceptance and self-realization as pathways to redemption. Through her gender transition, Emilia Perez is able to access a new and more authentic life as a morally upright and positive force in society. This seems innocuous enough until we consider that the idea that suffering from gender dysphoria somehow correlates to a propensity for serial murder is also the central conceit of The Silence of the Lambs. At one point earlier in the film, Rita sings to a skeptical surgeon, changing the body. Oh, yeah, this was so cringy. Changing the body changes society. Changing society changes the soul. Changing the soul changes society. Changing society changes it all. Which feels like the closest the movie comes to a thesis statement. but it's also a moronic sentiment and one that carries distinctly reactionary implications. After all, the idea that what individual people choose to do with their bodies redounds to societies and souls is a driving logic behind nearly every brand of bigotry under the sun, and transphobia especially. What are we really doing here? That Emilia Perez never even seems to ask itself this question tells you all you need to know about how little it thinks of its characters, its themes, and you. I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw something about the director saying that he didn't need to do research. Like, he didn't need to do research on queerness. Okay, I tried to find it just now, but I'm not able to. So take this with a grain of salt, but I do remember seeing somewhere that the director said that he didn't need to do research on the LGBTQ transgenderness and stuff like that. What? What? You didn't need to do research? You didn't need to have consultants? You didn't need to have a co-writer? That makes no sense at all. And you know, it's so crazy that recently I was approached by someone before I even watched this movie to work on a project that involved a transgendered character. And I said, okay, was it written by a trans person? No. Was a trans person consulted on it? No. I said, I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. I don't think that you should just go and make a story about trans people without consulting them, talking to them about it, doing your proper research and interviewing to make sure you get the story right. And if the person sees this, I'm saying this respectfully. Like, this is literally the reason why you have to do research about this, especially now that there's not so much information. We're all still learning. Putting out bad or improper information and imagery is just harmful to everybody. Honestly, he could have made this story without that aspect. Like, he could have had someone who wanted to, let's say, leave their life behind, and he had plastic surgery and lost weight and did this thing and tried to live a new life, came back into his children's life and just did that like that, maybe fell in love with his wife again. Like, you know, like, he could have did something like that. You didn't need to add that aspect if you wasn't going to do it properly. So I'm not trying to be like a bandwagoner, like, okay, everybody hates it, okay, and I liked it, okay, now I gotta hate it now. I still enjoyed it. I am gonna watch it again. I did start watching it again, and I did still like it, but I think maybe I need to give it a couple days and watch it again. But I still wanted to give my review and to all the comments onto all the controversy and stuff. I wonder if all this backlash is going to stop it from winning these awards at the Oscars. I heard another comparison that people were saying that Emilia Perez is like the 2025 or 2024 version of Crash. Like, back then when Crash came out, everybody liked Crash and thought it was just such a fantastic movie on race, and now looking back, the movie was horrible and doesn't make any sense.
At all. Growing up, I didn't know anybody else who was transgender. I didn't know anyone else who was struggling with their gender expression at all. It was really difficult for me to come out of the closet as a transgender woman because I had nobody to look up to. Films like Emilia Perez, which is a musical about a crime lord who transitions into being a woman, I'm not making that up, aim to represent trans people, aim to be that thing that someone like a little me or a teenage me or an adult me even brought her down and raised her up. I related far more to her as in order to uncover her truest self and really her own moral standards, and really rebels against the society that both brought her down and raised her up. I related far more to her than I related to any character in Emilia Perez, transgender or not. I'm not going to get into the parts about this film that should obviously be criticized by people who are much better at criticizing these things than me. Things like the fact that one of the main heroes of the film is a doctor in town who is A, transphobic, and B, promotes. It's weird and gross, especially at a time like this, especially since the actor is a former culture. I'm not going to get into the fact that the French director understands nothing about Mexican culture. I'm not going to get into the fact that almost none of the characters in this film set in Mexico are played by Mexican actors. What I will say is that trans people are not represented just because you put a trans character in a film and say, look at this shiny object. And I know this because I saw The TV Glow is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen in my entire life. It may be the best film I've ever seen in my entire life. And it is about the trans experience. And the main actor is not trans, even though he portrays a transgender woman. And the performance that is given by Justice Smith in that film is haunting and will stay with me for a long, long time. I saw The TV Glow found creative ways to demonstrate transgender dysphoria in its main character. Emilia Perez does not even try. allows for diatribes about dysphoria. There's even some singing involved, but there's nothing interesting. There's truly nothing interesting about Emilia Perez. And cisgender people in the academy and in the filmmaking industry think that it is an easy way to get an award by representing an underrepresented group like transgender people, regardless of how poorly they do it, because it's brave. You see on this poster, it is a miraculous movie. It's as daring as they come. This film is not daring. It's trying to win awards. And unfortunately, it's working. It's not daring to make a film about transgender people. It's daring to make a film where transgender people are allowed to be happy and not fetishized. That's what's daring. That's what we lack in society right now.
The Emilia Perez Awards run is absolutely insane. And listen, I want to be as respectful and productive with this conversation as possible, because I do understand that the subject matter of this film is very sensitive and very intense, and that there is a lot of representation in this film that is otherwise lacking in Hollywood. And those are important things, but they're not the only things. I think that this film and the unstoppable runaway train that it has been on during award season reminds me a lot of the film Crash that ended up winning Best Picture in 2006. If you don't know, a film named Crash won Best Picture in 2006, and at the time it was considered this poignant, sensitive, nuanced portrayal of race relations in America. And now, retroactively, it is looked back upon as liberal, centrist, pandering, regressive nonsense that was a bunch of people who could never understand those issues in the way that they should have to be telling those stories, patting themselves on the back for being inclusive. And it's one of the most embarrassing decisions that the Academy has ever made. I actually think it's a hugely important topic that very few people are bringing up, that the director of this film, Jacques Ouidard, is a seemingly straight, I'm not really sure, cisgendered Frenchman who doesn't speak Spanish or English, the two languages that are mostly spoken in this film. And the writing team behind this film is made up of entirely French people. And this is a film that deals with the subject matter of the crisis of missing people, specifically missing women in Mexico due to normalized and legalized corruption and gang violence. It's also not lost on me that that's a huge part of the story, and there's a huge emphasis on the fact that this is a story about women in this setting, but none of these characters are actually personally affected by the deadly and systemic violence against women that this film is supposedly addressing. All of that is not even yet getting into the absolutely wild narrative and creative choices that this film makes.
That's it right there. That's it. You guys got to tell me if you saw this movie and what you thought about it. If there is a movie that you like that literally everyone hates, you have to tell me in the comments. So I don't feel like such a goddamn loser. Oh my God. I don't know what to feel. I'm going to watch it again, but I watched the movie in good faith, totally ignorant to, thinking that these people, that I was in good hands, not that these French people was going to lead me on a road to hell. Okay. I didn't know. And listen, I know that filmmakers love to pat themselves on the back, and Hollywood definitely tries to make itself seem progressive. I definitely should have watched it with a grain of salt. And again, the whole Zoe Saldana thing, I should have been like, if she's in this, I need to ask questions. It's not like this is super rare for Hollywood, for directors to write films about stuff that they do not understand the breadth of, that they know nothing about, that they didn't really, I don't know, is it like the artistic ego that stops people from doing their proper research? Hearing that this is all written by French people is actually insane. And I also saw something where the casting director of the movie said that they couldn't find a good enough Mexican actress for this movie, which is just like, what? Like literally what? What are you talking about? I think the controversy is probably gonna, maybe they might not win as many awards. So, but I think it's interesting because, probably back then people were saying that Crash was such a good movie and it really portrayed race in America in such a smart way. Now people are awake. They know that there's better out there, and they don't just take slop. They don't just take being second choice. And I think that's a good thing overall. Please, guys, leave a comment below. Be honest, okay? Be honest. Make sure you like the video, share the video with your movie-loving friends. And I'm going to catch up with you guys in the next one, all right? Damn.